All right. Well, this is our second hour of the Reading Circle with Marc Medley. And my guest is on the line, Cora Daniels. I'm going to introduce her in a minute or so. But stay right there. It seems like for some reason, there we go. All right. I don't know why the CD was getting hung up there. The music was getting hung up, but there it is. I'm going to introduce Cora in a minute. Stay there. Don't you dare move. All right, apparently I'm on the sensitive CD deck in here. I mean, it's just picking up every little thing on the CD. So that's the sensitive one. So if you hear a couple of pings, that's because it's the sensitive set. Anyway, my guest Cora Daniels is on the line with me, and she says her story is simple. I'm a journalist who writes books. For this, I've been lucky to have won awards and gotten great reviews. More important to me is the feedback I get from readers. And you can indeed follow Cora on Twitter at I am Cora Daniels. She's there because I follow her. Or email her at info@coradaniels.com. I like to write things that challenge people's expectations and make them think while they laugh along the way. And I can tell you now, because I've begun reading Impolite Conversations, it does just that. The latest is Impolite Conversation, a book of essays that she wrote with one of her oldest friends, John L. Jackson Jr., old as in we've been friends since high school, not old as in he's old. Well, maybe. We seem to make a pretty good team. And you can check out the book page for the reviews or just buy it for yourself, which we're going to encourage you to do for a much more official bio, complete with the magazines she's worked for and other books. We can read below. I see Consumer Reports, Working Mother Magazine, Fortune, Essence Magazines, Men's Fitness, New York Times, the Oprah, O Magazine, USA Today, many others. And this is not the first time Cora has appeared on the Reading Circle with Marc Medley. She was actually here for one of her books before. And as a matter of fact, I read that book from cover to cover, as I'm going to do Impolite Conversations. And I had to have her on the air then. And that was, what was that? One Nation? What was the name of that one? It's something Nation. One Nation?
Ghetto Nation.
Ghetto Nation. That's it there. Ghetto Nation. When I read Ghetto Nation, I said, I have got to get her on the Reading Circle. And we connected at that time. And then I saw on LinkedIn where she'd introduced the latest book, Impolite Conversations. And I tapped the email back to her and said, you want to come back on the show? You want to do Impolite Conversations? She said, sure. And we set the date for this morning, and we are here. And welcome to, again, the Reading Circle with Marc Medley, Cora.
Oh, thanks for having me back.
I am glad to have you back. And I did start reading Impolite Conversations, and exactly as the book said, there were times I was laughing out loud, and it does make you think in terms of, and of course the title, for those in the listening audience, just listen to Impolite Conversations, a book of essays. All right. And she's tackling.
They're all into social media and want to talk all the time, but we wanted to really get to some more in-depth talk and some honest talk, because without that, our society becomes stagnant in the way we think about things and come up with solutions for things and sort of move forward. So we wanted to really just throw everything out there and not hold back and dig at stuff that sometimes are percolating in our minds, but we don't say out loud.
That's right.
Say them out loud. You only say them, in very small company that everyone else is on the same page, and we're just like, forget it, we're putting it out there on the page for everyone to read.
And I appreciate that. That's what I said, because I am less politically correct, and because
he's an anthropologist by training, and I'm a journalist. But as you said, we are also longtime friends. We've known each other actually since high school, and we get into things. We talk about things. And I'm always sort of fascinated what's going on in the academic world, and he's always like surprised what normal folks on the street are talking about, which is my world. And we wanted to sort of bridge those conversations together, and so that's how we decided to sort of work together. And in doing a book of essays, that actually came about because this was a few years ago. I was on this panel about James Baldwin, and I started rereading a lot of his essays, and thought about how, essays used to be, that genre used to be basically, that was our Twitter. That's what people, that's where people put big thoughts out there. And we as a community used to have our conversations through essays. We used to pound out problems through essays. And I wanted to sort of return to that genre and that art form and engage people on that aspect, and sort of to really, have to read things that take some thought, but might not take a lot of time.
And the thing is, you pick the topics that are the ones that usually folks always try to tap dance around. Yes. We were actually thinking about like a dinner party. What aren't you supposed to talk about at a dinner party? And in a very early version of the book, we had actually set up the table of contents like a dinner party. So, this is like the appetizer, the first course, the second course, the third course, because those are the things you're not supposed to talk about. But those are the things that run through the core, and it's funny, because you were saying, we started off with the sex chapter, and it's funny when we finished doing the book. John's comment was like, wow, we have all these things we're talking about, and he's like, but we're still all just talking about race, because it's also very much a conversation between two black friends about things that are on black people's minds. That's right, and again, like I said, they're the main ones, and many of the things, like when you get into the sex chapter, the first one, you really get into some stuff that for the most part is like taboo. I know that you talk about Jocelyn Elders when she made the comment about masturbation. Yes. And you kind of explode that whole thing. I was like, first off, probably somebody just fell off because I just said the word masturbation. They probably just dropped. I can't believe he said the M word. So right there, when I started reading that, I said, oh dear. I said, I see where she's going. But Jocelyn, she caught it for that. She really did. But with the sex chapter, I was thinking about this for the sex chapter. I am a mother. I have a daughter. My daughter, at this point is 8 going on 9. She actually just left the house to go off to play soccer. When I'm thinking about my daughter, I'm thinking about not just the little girl that she is, but the woman that I am raising, and the black woman that I am raising. And my sex chapter is really about how do we get to healthy relationships, healthy committed relationships. And part of any mature, healthy, committed relationship is sex, period. And I wanted for us to honestly talk about sex with our daughters and teach them that it's not something that they need to be ashamed about. Correct. But, something that they actually should enjoy. That doesn't mean that I'm talking about my 8-year-old now. Right. But the reason why I think it's important to talk about enjoying sex with our daughters is because the only way to truly enjoy sex is to have a respect for your partner and a respect for yourself. That's where you get that true level of enjoyment. So when I'm thinking about teaching my daughter that, I'm thinking about teaching her to respect herself to the highest level, and that's how you make that intimate connection with someone, through your mind, body, and soul. And I don't see what's wrong with that. But see, again, that's why I don't understand. And again, because what you just said makes all the sense in the world to me, because I remember my parents having the sex talk with me and my sister. They sat us down around the kitchen table and they said, we're going to break this down for you, street terms and clinical terms. This is what you're going to hear in the street about your various body parts and about sex, so forth and so on. And these are the clinical names, so forth and so on. And pretty much the same thing that you just said is what my dad and mom did for us at the kitchen table. And when I had that discussion with people, they look at me like, they did what? Yes, they did. And this is going back on them as, well, let me ask you a question. How did all the church people get here? And how is it that you have church people that have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 kids? Right. There had to be sex going on somewhere in there. Right. It's a natural act, but yet we've bastardized it. We've tried to make it taboo. And for the young people, that has really messed things up. So when you put it in the context of, wait a minute, this is how to have a healthy relationship, which at the end of the day is what all of us really want. So I really don't. I'm reading the thing, and I say I can go with her. I have it on the Kindle, so I'm highlighting stuff. I'm going through because I'm at the point now where you're saying, and I agree with you on Valentine's Day as well. So I have a great dislike for Valentine's Day. The ideal that there is a single day where everyone is supposed to get all lovey and mushy seems preposterous to me. Shouldn't a relationship filled with passion have many days like this? I agree. And if we are sentenced to only one day of passion, why should every relationship have the same day? Talk a little bit more about that. And again, I'm in agreement. See, again, call it like it is.
Yeah, no, it's just about, I think I'm challenging us to raise our expectations and demand a higher level from our relationships and our partnerships. And don't sort of just get, caught up and wrapped up and, this is what everyone's doing. So, it doesn't really matter what everyone else is doing. It should matter what you and your partner are doing.
This is true. These days have become great days for Hallmark and American Greetings and all the various card companies. They've become
That's the business report. Exactly. 10 years of Fortune magazine, so I can never ignore the dollar and cents.
Yeah, they wonderful days for that, because you go on to say, our practice of romance often includes a heavy dose of fantasy. Now, again, I'm with fantasy. Fantasy is
a laugh, an unexpected laugh when you're driving in a car that can, just put you in a good mood. It's those little things of when you have to be with someone on an everyday basis and going through decisions together as a couple and a unit, that are really going to get you through the long haul to, know how someone thinks and to make sure that you're on the same page. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with every single thing, but you have to be able to respect where the other person's coming from, so that you're not each completely dismissing where they're coming from, but working together.
Now, this next one, I know you caught a lot of flack for. I know that you caught a lot of flack for. It says, Nelson blames the rise of singlehood of highly educated black women and the lack of fulfillment many are finding in their love lives to a cycle of over-dependence on the church for companionship. Talk a little bit about that, and then we'll move on to the next chapter.
Okay. Yes, I was referring to Sophia Nelson, who I had interviewed for Essence magazine, and it's funny. Sometimes you're thinking about things, and so even when you're not writing it, you're still thinking about thoughts that are ending up in your book, and it's. I guess let me back up a little bit before we get like all kinds of flack. Basically, we were talking about when you don't sort of have those healthy relationships,
right?
In your personal life, we are still humans, and you'll still need those connections. And what is happening is a lot of us are substituting the church for that relationship in our life, and so we were talking about black women especially, and if you look at marriage rates, marriage rates are down for every single community.
They're declining.
They're not down by class,
right?
And so when they're down for every community, it's more of an economic issue, because folks feel that they can't afford to get married. Really, they can't afford the wedding, and so then they forego the marriage. But when you're looking at middle and upper class, the marriage rates are not going down. They're going up, and there's no decline in those marriage rates, except for African Americans, except for black women. That's where they're declining. And if you look at the difference between black women and if you look at the difference between professional black women and other professional women, our relationship to the church is much stronger. And so what's happening is we are looking for those voids in our life through the church, and it's hindering us from finding healthy relationships on earth. I'm not saying that we should stop going to church. I'm not saying that we should stop having faith. But you have to have a balance.
That's right.
And that's all, that's all we're
doing. And maybe because the filter is gone or maybe because of perspective, but I understood exactly what you were saying. Matter of fact, I'll close out this portion with this page here, or these two excerpts that kind of summed up what you just said. And that is, black women have allowed the church to shape their sex lives. It hasn't stopped us from having sex, but instead it creates a foundation of sexual contradiction, guilt, and dishonesty that can be suffocating. This matters because our hang-ups about sex are related to our singlehood. And then I'm going down and skipping a little further. It is hard to build a strong partnership with someone if you don't understand yourself. Now, that's a key piece right there.
Right.
Sexual desires are part of that. There's nothing wrong in reading so far and connect it to exactly what Cora was talking about, because, again, we tap dance around so much. That's why nothing gets done.
Right.
I also read Dr. Ben Carson's book, His is One Nation. Yours was Ghetto Nation. His is One Nation. And that's what he talks about in terms of this whole political correctness thing needs to be done away with, because we get nothing done trying to be politically correct.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think it's very dangerous when folks are afraid to speak candidly. That's if you're always sort of editing yourself and holding back because you're afraid of the attack and you're afraid of being offended, then we don't get anything done. I mean, isn't that why we're writing these books and having these conversations? It is to, idealistically, make things better, because there's stuff in our communities that need to be fixed.
Well, this is true. That's one of the things that fascinates me the most, particularly, and I've said this on the air before, particularly about African Americans. Every time someone really kind of calls it as it is, like a Bill Cosby or a Louis Farrakhan, or I'm trying to think of the other, he wrote, I see his face, it'll come to me. As a matter of fact, he wrote the book about Bill Cosby, about the whole pound cake speech. His name will come to me. But anytime we call it like it is, we start complaining and they're airing our dirty laundry. And my thinking is, well, if you know the laundry is dirty, clean it. Wash it. If you know why sit there and keep complaining about somebody talking about the dirty laundry and refusing to clean it when they're giving you the detergent?
Right,
they're giving you the washing machine. They're giving you the water. They're giving what you need to do to wash the laundry. But no, you want to sit back and whine and complain. They're airing our dirty laundry.
ShelterPetProject.org today. Adopt. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council. Welcome back to The Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance so common with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
That is correct. You're listening to an extended edition or a Reading Circle doubleheader.
Community level. And we need to start thinking of ourselves as parents on that community level. So if we don't like how a younger generation is acting, then we as the grown folks need to take responsibility for that.
I couldn't agree more. But that's what we know, like in terms of like getting them to debate in a weighty discussion, because with the new standards, that's what they're trying to get the kids to do, is to really go in and cite text. Let's say, for example, if we took your book, they would be able to read that and then put in their own words what they got out of it, and then go back and prove what they're saying by citing from the text. Mm-hmm. They would cite, just like I was doing whenever I was reading the excerpts.
Right.
All right. But we find the children have a hard time doing that. They have a hard time coming up with a position. Well, why do you say that? And truth be told, a lot of our adults do too. And maybe that's why they're so busy trying to say it in a way that nobody will come back at them. I don't know. But the next issue that you talked about was money.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about that. What are your thoughts there? Or share a few of your thoughts, because we want you to get the book. We're just trying to whet your appetite, and I figured the sex piece would whet it right off the bat. No pun intended.
Well, with the money chapter, my background is as a business reporter. That's sort of my bread and butter. Even though most folks never sort of guess that by the books that I write, we can really work towards fixing that. Instead of I think what's happening now is we don't admit that it's the exception. So there's always this hope that that's going to happen, and then we don't really enact policies that can help that. And so in that chapter, so I get into that. First, I try to convince folks that breaking down by the numbers that our mobility is really a myth, and then talk about if we really want to sort of improve things, then we should enact policies that are going to help folks today, because instead of just thinking about tomorrow, and really look at improving the lot of working mothers. Because when you improve the situations of working mothers, you improve families and communities. And we're at a time and a place where most women. I'm not going to say every woman is a mother, but most working women are mothers at this point, or they will do some mothering at some point. So they'll either be mothering their parents or other relatives in their family, even if they didn't birth their own children, and that's something to think about in terms of our motherhood. And so if you look at it in that sense, then most women working are a mother at some level. And so if we target policies to improve the lot of working women, then we improve our communities as a whole.
Now, again, what are in terms of our perceptions of money? Because you have many people out there that really, going back to the religious and the Bible thing, when it says that verse and there's something about the root, money is the root of all evil. And the truth of the matter is that's not what the Bible is saying. It said the love of, that means whenever that's your only and top priority, that nothing else matters but money. That's what the Bible is kind of getting at. But there's nothing wrong with being wealthy. But many people, and again, they think for whatever their religious belief may be means they have to be a pauper or have to be downtrodden or have to be poor or have to be. That's where, to me, kind of like the whole money thing gets twisted as well. It's like, well, if I become wealthy, that's a bad thing. Have you come across that at all?
I think, honestly, I don't think that's as much of an issue anymore, because now we have whole churches where it's drive all our decisions and not think about how money is a tool for our decisions and not the decision itself.
Right.
And any community trying to climb, it comes through economic empowerment. So we're in an age where we have a black president, but we've already seen the limits of what
and the economics, because I forget the stats, but I know I've always heard like this crazy figure of like the African American community could be like, for what we spend as consumers, almost like a country to itself.
Yeah, and I mean that's power.
It is.
All you have to do is organize and wield it and make demands of it, and realize that yes, that are. I guess I'm just thinking through this now and stuff. But that is the power of a nation.
It is. We
can act as, not to go all like Louis Farrakhan and stuff, but you can act as, as a nation of upliftment.
Exactly. I think where we're trying to get folks to go, I know working with kids, is try to understand, we as African Americans, I'm speaking again, black people, African Americans now, we're some of the largest consumers, but we don't own and produce. And therein lies part of the issue. And that's where when we start talking the economic message, is that we have to become the entrepreneurs, we have to become the producers, and then support, because it's this crazy conundrum. You get a black person with a business, and all the black people think that black business person is supposed to give them a break because they black.
Right.
You got that craziness going on. And then the flip side of it is you may get a black person, and when I say it, I'm just giving examples, and again, I'm not bashing black folks because every black business is not like this. I'm just saying these are some of the things that do drag us down, though. You get now a black person that think they can do the business any old kind of way, and it's to be accepted because they were black.
Right.
It's like you can't have those two things going on. It has to be and folks, most of the vendors that I hire to do any work for me is usually African American first, and they get a speech from me that the expectation is this. I'm not expecting you to be shucking and jiving and bruh and all that. No. The expectation is you're going to do a quality job just as if I had gone to someone else. And generally, 9 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, the folks that I've dealt with have done just that. They've been phenomenal. But where I'm going with that is if we're going to get economically on our feet, you're going to have quality work.
Well, John, that essay is very tongue-in-cheek and stuff, and he's basically like calling the Republican Party out for its some of its ridiculousness and some of its not ridiculousness, and he's trying to sort of have this honest conversation, about politics and respecting everyone's, opinions and beliefs and things, which is.
And to most of my students, particularly the upper grade students, and I've had people come to me and said, Ben Carson has lost his mind. And they're like, why has he lost his mind? Because I guess he's identifying as Republican or with the Republican Party or conservative. I'm not sure, or independent. I'm not sure which one, but I think he's lining up more with how the Republicans speak and think. But some of the things that Ben is saying is on point. He's sold out. Oh, he's a sellout. I can't believe you reading what that nut says. Now, this is a man, mind you, that has done the first surgery.
I'm not on air, so I can be a little bit more more blatant with my language, in the book. But in the book, the essay is called F the N word, bring back the word nigger. So
yeah, go ahead, expand, explode it.
Okay. Well, to me, the N word is just as offensive as the word that it's trying to replace. It's erasing history, and I think it's ridiculous that we allow that it becomes so easy to use a piece of hateful speech because we've devised a nickname for it, and us old folks a lot of times will criticize the hip-hop generation for doing the exact same thing, putting an A at the end of the word.
Right.
And we use the N-word, and there's really no difference. And it's interesting when you brought up your students, and you were talking about how, now the mode in education is to sort of teach your students to cite references, with their arguments. If we think about the moment we are in today and how everyone is using the N-word in talk and in print, then what are the students in tomorrow going to cite? Are they going to come back and know really what we were talking about?
No.
Because, no one shed tears over being called N-word.
Right.
Right. Dogs and hoses weren't, sent at our community and said, N-words, get back.
Right.
Slave masters on horses didn't look at us in Havers and say N-word. There's a difference. And we, by not acknowledging that history and erasing that history, we do ourselves a disservice, because the point is it shouldn't be so easy. I shouldn't have been able to rattle that off stuff because it's much harder to actually call it by its name.
That's right. And on that point, again, when my students, because they think their principal is crazy, they really do, but they understand. But I've been in assembly programs where I tell them, first off, you're not going to be using the term right, but second off, let me tell you why. You need to understand the history of it. You need to understand, go back, look up the history, because at that time it was being used. You were not considered a human being. Matter of fact, you was considered 3/5 of a human, if that. Change it that much by doing the N-word. I'm with you there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's, again, a valid point. And folks don't want to get real and say, now, look, this is why. Either you use it or don't use it. I mean, I don't, me personally, I don't want to hit a word around me personally. And I'm very clear on that. And when I walk through the playground and I hear the kids saying it, they get a big "who."
Right. So that's the point. Like if we don't want to hear it on the playground, then we shouldn't be, having it. The N-word is not used on the playground. The N-word is used in more polite settings, in dinner parties and in newsrooms and in college classrooms. That's all of a sudden where you can debate it, and everyone just uses N-word as nauseam. That makes it any different. So that's what I was trying to do with that essay. I think you want me to go on to other essays?
Yeah, no, because go ahead. That's the whole point. I want folks, as you're listening to what you'll be reading in more depth when you purchase the book, and so that's what we're doing here. That's the purpose of the show, is to encourage you to read even more. And I love Cora's work. I loved Ghetto Nation. I love Ghetto Nation. I really did. And I love this one as well because it calls it as it is. And the only way we're going to move forward is to have healthy discussions. You may not agree, but at least it gives you something to think about.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I'm not trying to hit you over the head and saying you have to agree with me. But, I do want to get you out of your comfort zone. I do want to think about things. And you might come to the same conclusion that you did before you heard my argument, but now it's sort of not just a knee-jerk response. Now you know why you're at that point.
Right.
I think in the race chapter, John and I also do some essays on color and how our discussions on race cannot ignore colorism. So it's not good enough only to talk about the plight of black folks. We have to also talk about the plight of dark-skinned black folks, because when you break down all the numbers and things, that's really who is at the bottom in our society in terms of economics. And it's something that folks don't want to talk about, folks don't want to acknowledge. Folks, when we talk about colorism, we talk about it only like within hushed tones in our community, where it's actually beyond our community in terms of on a societal level, in terms of people's reactions to color. We are in a society that, and acknowledging, acknowledging our own, every community's own levels of hate is where we can start moving forward, rather than sort of being this blind, like we're all colorblind type of bullshit.
Well, that's true, because people really don't understand, because we use the terms interchangeably, but there is a difference between racism and prejudice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Everybody is prejudiced one way or the other, because prejudice kind of gets into what you like or don't like. I like chocolate ice cream versus vanilla ice cream. That's a prejudice. Mm-hmm. Racism gets into the fact when I can control something that's going on in your life, whether it's your livelihood or something about your life, I'm controlling that based on the race. Same thing with sexism and anything else. I'm in a position. So when people say, well, black folks can't be racist, yes, they can. Right. If I own the store and I don't hire that white person or that Japanese person because they're white or they're Japanese, I am now a racist. Right. That's the cut people don't understand, that racism deals with power. Right. Prejudice deals with choice and opinion.
Exactly. A completely different set of coping mechanisms and survival tactics that generations are going through. I mean, even if we think about it, getting back to the money thing and getting back to dollars and cents. Often when folks think about discrimination, like in the workplace, you think about, oh, well, I didn't get this job because I am black, or she didn't get this job because she is black, which is happening less and less. We don't think about, though, not that I didn't get this job because I'm black, but so-and-so got their job because they were white. Because most jobs in this country are, not given because you're being let out, right, but they're given to friends and family. Right. So when you talk to most folks who get their jobs, at some point in time, they knew someone who knew someone who knew someone. And that's literally how 90% of jobs happen at this point. They knew someone who knew someone, and so it's illegal to deny someone a job because of who they are, but it's not illegal to give someone a job because of who they are, and
right.
that's complete. That's a different. That it seems subtle, but it's not. That's sort of how the door is closed at the moment, and folks don't acknowledge that. So when you talk to folks, they say, well, I got here because I worked hard, without acknowledging that the door might have been opened just because of who they were.
And see, I tell people all the time, because I know that old adage is not what you know, is who you know. And I kind of do an appendage to that, saying, well, who you know may get you in the door, but what you know is what keeps you there.
Exactly.
So that's where, maybe who I knew may have helped me to get in, but it's what I know and what I'm doing that's keeping me there. Because trust me on this, in 2014, if you're not doing what you know and can show it, you won't be there long, regardless of your color.
Right. But then So in terms of it's what you know that's going to keep you there, and that's where the hard work comes into play.
That's right.
But if the who you know is getting you into the door, and we don't know all those who's, then we're never going to be able to prove what we know.
That's right. And the person I was trying to think of when we were talking about the pound was Juan Williams. That's whose name I was trying to call to memory there, was Juan Williams, because Juan wrote a book on the pound cake speech. Mm-hmm. And that's when they get into the whole thing about, us airing our dirty laundry. It's on eggshells. Well, I don't want to say that, because if I say that, this one's going to... No. Have the conversation, have the dialogue. So, all right, we talked about...
Because that's where you get to creative solutions. That's where we move beyond just sort of complaining about things, but actually fixing them. And you can't come up with innovative thought and creative solutions if everyone's like holding back.
Right. And that's where Dr. Carson is coming from. That's where Ben Carson is coming from. And those that are kind of getting enlightened and moving that way. And it really does foster for me much more. And like I said, there was a time where I would have played the political correctness game. I was like, you know what, I want, or either I just hold it in and not say it at all. Mm-hmm. But again, through time and experiences, I found that just letting it all hang out there and then deal with the chips wherever they may fall has worked better for me. And I'm not saying you're going to blast and be nasty with everybody. That's not what I'm talking about. But I mean, this is, let's look at it from a different perspective.
Right. I mean, it's interesting, too, because the folks that you keep bringing up, the authors that you keep bringing up, who you said have been able to do that, they're also, if they're coming from a different political viewpoint than John and I, and it's interesting that we don't have anyone from, a spectrum who's sort of breaking out of the box and being honest, as well.
Right. So if you've just joined us, I hope you've been with us since 7 o'clock. Actually, I hope you've been with us since 6. But if you just joined us at 7 to catch Cora, that's exactly who I'm talking to, is Cora Daniels. We're talking about her latest release book, Impolite Conversations on Race, Politics, Sex, Money, and Religion. It was released in September?
Yep, September 30th.
September. So it's right, because I know I started seeing it come through, and that's when I said, let me get her on here while the book is hot. It's just released. Let folks know about it. And I downloaded it as soon as I saw it, and I started reading it.
Thank you.
And again, I am full support of that, and I wish everyone would read it. If nothing else, like I said, no one's trying to force agreement. The name of my blog is called The Critical Thinker. Mm-hmm. And somebody sent me feedback one time on the comment section and said, no, you're not looking for anybody to critically think. You want somebody to agree with what you think. I said, no, I never said anybody had to agree with what I wrote. I'm putting it out there to make you think. Now, you think whatever you want to think. I care less. Whether you agree with me or not doesn't make me any difference. But I'm going to put it out there, things that maybe, you take for granted or overlooked, or just, they're everyday things that you kind of put it out there in front of you to make you think. Oh, as Arsenio Hall used to say, things that make you go,
Exactly.
Well, this is exactly what Cora's book does. It makes you kind of go, you know what, I never thought about it that way. Or if I did think about that, I wouldn't have said it.
Right, exactly. And my co-author, John L. Jackson Jr., if you want to talk about critical thinking, this is a brother who can really break it down. One of our top academic thinkers in the country. We should, be supporting our teachers like this. He's dean of we have a black dean of the School of Social Policy at the University of Pennsylvania. That is something we should be
I know that's right.
Applauding.
I know that's right.
And, he So his stuff, I mean, his essays are really, really amazing and intelligent. And it's good to sort of bring that voice out of academia to our dinner tables.
Now I'm assuming, because I think we all are at this point, but he's Googleable.
Yes.
If we put his name in Google, some of the essays or everything will pop on him.
Yes.
And that's John L. Jackson Jr.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to look him up myself.
He's an author. He has many books. His first book, Harlem World, is considered sort of a seminal work, talking about race and class in Harlem. His most recent.
Get you rising bright and early to join me this morning. The discussion was exactly what I thought it would be, and then some. Because I knew when I cracked that book open or slid it on my Kindle as I slide the pages, I knew when I got to that first chapter, I said, "Oh, this is going to be a fun interview."
Well, thank you. So hopefully, encourage you guys to sort of take that journey to.
This, in my mind, this political correctness mess is taking us backwards. It just really is. Nobody doing nothing. Just sitting around being polite with each other.
Oh.
Kids getting killed every day. I got more shootings in my city than ever. And folks sitting around being politically correct. Or as my boss used to say, having learned discussion. But let folks know how they can get Impolite Conversations, any book signings you're going to be doing, anything they need to know. As you heard me tell Mary earlier, anything except the dollar amount, you're free to say.
Oh, they can go on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. If they go to their local bookstore, and if it's not at your local bookstore, then ask the bookseller to put it on order. But it should be. What do they always say in commercials? Well, it should be wherever books are bought and sold.
Wherever books are sold. That's right. And with technology, you don't have to go anywhere. You can just point, click, and they'll deliver it to your door.
It's definitely on. It's definitely on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all the online realtors. In terms of book signings, that they can check my website, CoraDaniels.com, because I always post things when I'm traveling. I think next I'm traveling to Washington, D.C. Next weekend. But yeah, so there's you guys are down in Jersey. So John is having a big launch on Election Day on November 4th at the bookstore at Penn, the Barnes & Noble bookstore at Penn.
At where?
At the Barnes & Noble bookstore at the University of Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay, yes. It's simple that you would stop by my little show, particularly after being on such areas as ABC and CNN and all those. But truly, I mean, it's, for me, people are people, and that's what I love about this. And the opportunity to speak with you, to chat about your work, people that actually, I get a chance to talk with the people that wrote the various works, and for me, that's a thrill. And the listening audience has an opportunity, for lack of a better cliche or adage, hear it straight from the horse's mouth. They have an opportunity to hear that on the show. So I thank you again for rising. I wish you much success. I will be reading the rest of Impolite Conversations, because usually whenever I do the interview, I've skimmed it and I've read parts. But after the interview, I get to really read it from cover to cover, page to page. And I know, just like I did Ghetto Nation, I'm going to finish up Impolite Conversations as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, have a great day, and we'll be in touch.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care now. All right. Well, that was fun as I thought it was going to be, but I hope it was not just fun. I hope it was also informative. And I could not agree with Cora more in terms of swimming in the world of candor. And that does not, see, people get confused. People think saying something as it really is being nasty. People think saying something and calling it the reality of what it is, like people have been teasing me lately that you really don't have any filter now. And they're like, you're like, man, we don't know what to expect out of you. Anything come on. And it's not anything that will come out, but I know what I'm seeing. To get where we need to be, we are going to need folks, and more folks, to swim in that world of candor. And just call things for what they are and discuss it. You don't have to agree with everything that's said. Nobody's trying to force anybody to think the way they think, but they do need you to think. That's clear. Because I don't think a whole lot of thinking is going on. I think a whole lot of busy work is going on, but I don't think a whole lot of thinking is going on. Because some of this stuff that we do, thinking could not have gone into that. Like, who, as Adam Clayton Powell can say, whose dumb idea was that? So that's so when folks start talking about being, candor or calling things straight up, as my godbrother can say, calling things straight without the chaser, that's what we're talking about. And until we get there, the adultery thing that they brought to him, how, he just kind of wrote something down in a circle and then turned around and looked up at him and said, all right, those of you that haven't done nothing, throw the first stone. Well, nothing they could say. You had the situation when they asked him, well, they say you're and he just looked at him and said, well, if that's who you say that I am. I mean, it's like, if you go through the Bible and look at it from the lens of the scenario and the responses Jesus would give, that's why you would know. That's why I say, to me, Jesus was just cool. Because the responses would always be, to me, like a cool answer. Like, They come at him, with a trick question, and he just give them this answer that they couldn't deal with. Even whenever he was standing, if you look at the story in front of Pilate, Pilate said, I find no fault with this man. You all say, I'm going to leave the decision to you as to what, I do with him. But for me, I don't find any fault in this man. That's what I mean by cool. And for me, candor is cool. And maybe that's what I'll put on Twitter site under my name. Because you heard Cora say, swim in the world of candor. So maybe I'll follow up with, to me, candor is cool. All right, we're in the 8 o'clock hour. Let me do what I need to do, because we actually have run over a couple of things I need to do. But I had a blast, and I have a long day ahead of me because I'm actually chaperoning a field trip with my angels, heading over to New York City to Halloween Land. 5 of my students won tickets to Halloween Land, and I'm going over as a chaperone with them. Because I really do love my angels that I serve. I really do. I call them my geniuses. I call them my angels, because I'm calling them as I wish them to be. I'm not calling them necessarily as they are at the exact minute, but I call them as I see them as we go forward. I call them as I wish them to be. So I'm going over with my angels to New York City, to Halloween Land, chaperoning that trip, and that's going to run all day and then come home and get ready for tomorrow. So let me go ahead and do what I need to do, and then go on into the good news and song.
They thought they could stop me.